own sexuality and maybe feeling, confused, uncomfortable, like
Right.
labeled.
I think that that's like the biggest reason, just so that they don't have to feel like that. Like, there doesn't have to be shame around sex,
Yeah.
really. And there's a lot of discussion about it all the
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
and controversy, and like people have different thoughts about different
Yeah.
things, and they want to implement those on other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you just have to like remind yourself what it is.
Yeah.
And it's a physical act.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter like who you want to have sex with,
Mm-hmm.
or how often, or
Yeah.
like how much you want to talk about it, how little you want to talk about it. Like, so up to you, because it's just okay,
Yeah.
we all have one life, right? As far as we know. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Why get hung up? Why judge? Yeah. I mean, I think too, like, what do you think is the danger of sort of labeling or mislabeling women based on their sexuality or sexual experiences?
um I think that the danger is that you can use it as
Mm.
leverage
Yeah, like
toward,
weaponize it.
right. And I think that we want to move away from weaponizing it as much as possible,
Mm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
because then we start associating with other things. Like, we
Mm.
think that, we can be like, well, you just told a white lie and you're also really sexual. So that means that like sexual people are liars. And it's like, that's how,
Mm.
sometimes we do weird association, and now,
Mm.
well, cool, because she's overly sexual, now she's a cheater.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or she's
Yeah.
like an adulterer, when it's not even associated. Um, yeah, yeah, weaponizing it. I just think we should not do that.
Yeah.
Just like
Yeah.
don't have any opinions towards it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing that's wrong or right, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of wrong and right, I also feel like it's really cool how the show doesn't shows femininity in all its forms and is really an example of there's no wrong or right way to be a woman.
Right.
Um, which I just love.
Yeah.
Um, and to go back onto Fatten's kind of sexuality, I think it's really cool too. I was thinking about this the other day that how her backstory was written, that it's very clear that she's sexually active and in control of her actions and her sexuality before she finds out about her father's affairs.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that it's like her father's affairs don't create this damage that then makes her want to go sleep with everybody, which I feel like is what we see a lot. We've seen a lot in on screen, which I don't like that. I like that it's like it establishes
Yeah.
her confidence in herself and her sexuality before that happens.
Right. And I think that too, it just goes to show the layers of the story.
Mm.
Because if you think about it, whether she knew that her dad was cheating on her mom her whole life is sort of irrelevant, because it's still
Yeah.
like the the general air, the vibe. Like, you still learn from your parents,
Yeah.
in one way or another. And I think a part of the reason why she was so upset is because she related to her dad so much her whole life,
Yeah.
including this like unsatiable need to have sex all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's, I think that's part of the reason why she retaliated so
Yeah.
harshly. It's like
Yeah.
she was ashamed of herself
Ooh.
in a lot of ways, I think,
Interesting.
because now all of a sudden, for the first time maybe, she's felt shame for
Oh,
her
yeah.
act.
And like, how dare he? And he, oh God, of course, like a man
Right.
implemented or made her implement that shame on herself.
Right.
In an indirect way, but
anything
still.
wrong. Yeah. Because, like, you know, she's very unashamed of herself, which is so cool.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just like, I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to think that I've been doing something bad.
Yeah. Because she wasn't doing anything wrong. Wow. It's like, and then I think that she slowly sort of on the island that regains that sort of, it's like she's letting go of that shame, you know. And what's so interesting, like you said it earlier, it's like all these gals don't really realize it at first, but they're all dealing with their own personal trauma. And
I think when she admits to Leah, like, I don't know anything about love, or I don't know shit about love, I think that's like a big realization for her.
Yeah.
And she's like, I probably shouldn't, you know, be talking like I'm like some sort of relationship expert. Like,
exactly. Yeah. And the realization. Yeah. And it's like the realization too of like, I don't want people to judge me, so why am I judging others? And I think that that's what like Leah and Fatin have that wonderful sort of realization.
That reminds me of an interesting thing is, you know, I wonder if people relate like being overly sexual or vice versa with like trauma.
Yeah, I think so.
Traumatized and that you're not coping with it properly when maybe it's not something that is like in Fatin's case.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like in her case, like I feel like the shame would make her stop, and that stopping would be the trauma, you know? Yeah. So like maybe we just move away from associating people's actions with like her ability to cope or to know themselves. You
exactly.
know, they do know themselves. Maybe they're just being themselves.
Exactly. I think like that's the thing. It's like we really have to, I think, overall as a society, like take a beat really before, you know, it's almost like count to 10 before you're like thinking the first thing about someone, because you don't know, you cannot assume that. That's why I think it was so cool, like I said, that it's established that she is sexually active before she finds out, because you could assume like, oh, Fatin's father had an affair with all these women and that's why she's like overly sexual, because she's like, we can assume the damage, we can assume the trauma, when it can really be coming from different places. And I think that's what the show does too, is it like takes you to those unexpected places. And it really makes you think. I hope that it makes, you know, young women watching at home, you know, think how they sort of react to, you know, the friendships in their lives, or, you know.
Definitely. I mean, I have this friend, this is like a great example of this. We were texting last night, and she's an athlete, she's a runner, and she was like, yeah, I can't sleep, you know, I've just got this and I was like, yeah, I get anxiety-induced insomnia all the time. Don't tell me about it. She's like, no, it's not like anxiety. I've just, you know, trained. I've got endorphins pumping. I've got competition season coming up. Like, I'm stoked.
Yeah.
And I wanted to respond and be like, oh, I know what that feels like too. Because like, I, you know, get excited for my next project or whatever. And then I stopped myself and I was like, wait, no, I actually don't know what that feels like, because I've never been an athlete. You know? And so like, yes, I don't know what like the endorphin high is like, and not being able to sleep and having that like propel me. I have no idea what that feels like. I'm not gonna try and relate to it, you know?
Yeah. And it's like, okay, maybe I should just be like, tell me how that feels.
That sounds awesome. Like, that sounds really exciting. You know, like, I'm glad that you're having a good time, even though you can't.
That's so true. It's like whether we mean to or not, we are all full of assumptions.
Yeah.
Like, and yeah, it's really interesting.
I mean, it was such a small scale of it, but like, yeah, you just in tiny ways like that. It's like, why do we have to relate to everyone?
Yeah.
Why? Like, why?
Yeah.
You know?
True. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, you can still be like, you can still be a good friend and a good whatever without saying, I can relate to that. I mean, it's so true. It's like whatever, God, and it's so true. How many times I've talked to friends and it's like the response is, oh, I totally get it. Or like,
Right.
or, oh yeah, that happened to me once. And you're like, no, wait, that's not the same thing.
And that's your thought, you know, it's like you don't feel better. It's
No.
like you're just describing a scenario that's maybe in like some ways similar, but not actually similar at all.
Exactly. It's really fascinating. Yeah, got to take a minute, like process what we're actually, how we're actually responding to people. Like, is this the, could I be better? Could I respond in a more,
Or
you
maybe
know?
just like be better at listening, you know?
Yes.
Just like instead of like trying to find something that you can really just be like, okay, yeah, I'm just gonna like listen to this person and try to understand from their perspective.
I feel like that's kind of, now that I'm thinking about it, a lot in the show too, because we have the backstories. That's what, this is what's so brilliant about Sarah, I think. Like, because we have the backstories, the audience starts to kind of understand where the trauma is coming from. Yet there's never these big monologues on the island of like, this is what happened to me. Actually,
Right.
a lot of it is sitting and listening.
Yeah.
There's a lot of just like, whether it's with like Dot and, you know, Martha and the boar, it's not like, well, let me tell you my whole story. It's like this kind of silent, it speaks volume. The silence and like the sitting and listening speaks volumes.
Mm-hmm. Nothing's ever obvious, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what's cool about just entertainment in general, you know? Like, that's what makes good entertainment. Just sort of like skirting around the subject, and then it's done. And then you know what the subject is, but they never explicitly said it.
Yeah. You got to have some faith in your audience, you know?
Yeah.
You got to like you got to just trust that they're going to get it. And not having to like, you know, point everything out to them.
No, because exposition is boring.
It truly is. It truly is. And you get so much in just conversation. And that's what's so lovely about too. It's like you got these 8 girls and you know, they're kind of broken off into groups and you have these just like really true to life, lovely conversations. And like, it's never like, I'm here for you. Like we're supporting each other. Like, you know what I mean? It's just, it is.
Yeah, it's not like sappy, like, you know, like everything, even like the hugging moments, they're all so raw.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I truly love that. Like I said, wish this was around when I was younger.
Yeah. That's a really good point, actually. She does a really good job at encapsulating, like, you know, how genuine things become when you move outside of the superficial.
Yeah, it's like you obviously, none of us want to be stranded on an island, you know, with no food and starving. But it also makes you envious of a time without all the noise. And to see what kind of can blossom from that. And I think that's why when all the good girls kind of have, when they come back to, wherever the hell they are, when they get like rescued, you can kind of see there's like a melancholy. It's like they don't want to be back on the island. They don't want to be like starving and dirty, but they also, how do you then, I mean, I guess we're going to find out in season 2. It's like, how do you then adjust to
real life?
Yeah. What do you want for Fatin in season 2? What would be your hope for her?
I want her to reconnect with her mom. Really?
Oh,
like, I think that's an important relationship there that needs to be sort of mended. She didn't do anything wrong, you know? And I think she resented her most of her life. Yeah. And it's just part of growing up. Like, you realize so many things, so many reasons you resented your mom is because it reminded you of yourself.
Yeah. Oh, that would be really, I would love to see that as well. I would love to see that. Well, Sophia, this has been so lovely chatting with you.
Yeah, I
I
have.
loved it. I absolutely loved it. Thank you so much for taking the time. And, for everyone watching, if you haven't already, watch The Wilds on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
Binge all of it. It's a great, it's a great binge. It truly is.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, well, this was really, really nice. So thank you, and stay safe out there in this crazy world of ours. And, thank you. And we'll talk soon, I hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thank you
Bye.
so much, Sophia.